Good evening and welcome to our literary program. Today we have with us Dr. Biswapriya Purkayastha, who is a dentist by profession and a writer by vocation. He is an alumnus of St. Edmund's School and College and thereafter went to King George Medical College to do his dentistry. Dr. Purkayastha has received an award for his book Fiday from the Lito Fest Manuscript Contest Writer at Mumbai. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being with us today. And first of all, the question that comes to mind is, how did you become a dentist and a writer?
Well, when I was in school here in St. Edmund's, I was one of those people who kept on writing stories when I was told to write essays.
Okay.
So the essays turned out to be stories, and I enjoyed writing them as well as reading them. And right from the beginning, I knew that I wanted to write, when I could, novels and so on. Obviously, at this point, there's no way that you can just become an author from the start off and make a living. This is not the 19th century. So becoming a dentist was not something that I really planned on. It happened.
Okay.
When I finished what was then pre-university in St. Edmund's, and I started in BSc. Then at that point, I was looking for some alternative further education. Dentistry came up, so I went to dentistry. But that didn't make any difference to my desire to be an author as such. Even in a college in Lucknow, when there were the usual yearly festivals, there was a writing contest. I always used to write for that and so on.
Okay, that's a wonderful journey you've had. Now, this book of yours, Fiday, you say you won an award for it, this Lito Fest award.
That's right.
How did this happen? How did it come about?
The award.
Yes, the award.
Well, my literary agent submitted this for the competition.
Okay.
That the literary agents from all over the country, many of them submitted various books that were published at that time to this. And the panel of judges, whoever that was, I wasn't there, so I can't say. They selected this.
Okay. And the Fiday, the book, as we can see from the cover, it looks like something from the terrorist fields. What exactly is it about?
It's about Kashmir, terrorism in Kashmir, specifically the Fidayin attacks. You know what a Fidayin attack is? Not a suicide attack per se, it's a suicidal attack where a small group of rebels of some kind, whether you call them terrorists, terrorist is a loaded word. You know, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter and so on. A typical Fidayin attack would be the one in Bombay in 2008, Mumbai in 2008, whereas a small group of attackers infiltrates a military base or some other major installation and keeps on fighting until they're killed. It's quite different from a suicide bomber or something like that. Or if they can, some of them sometimes manage to escape. But I was always fascinated by this, and when by these people, I mean not by fascinated, I mean the entire psychology behind this. And when they started the Fidayin tactic in the mid 2000s in Kashmir, they immediately reversed the rebel to soldier kill ratio almost to. Before that, it was, if I remember correctly, around 7 to 1, 7 rebels killed to one soldier killed. After this Fidayin attack started, it dropped to almost 1 to 1.
Oh.
Because, and the entire psychology was of extreme interest to me. So I decided to further read up on this. When I was reading up on this, at the same time, I had a family friend who was at that time in the army. He is actually from Lashmir, though nowadays he lives in Hyderabad.
Okay.
So he was at that time still in the army, and he had been first posted to Sri Lanka during the Indian intervention, and then in Kashmir. So he was telling me about his experiences in Kashmir. One of my oldest friends from the dental college is also in the CRPF now. He is an officer in the CRPF, and he too, though he was a dentist, he is posted to Kashmir. Another friend from school is now a colonel in the army, and he too was posted to Kashmir. So all these people, I gathered inputs from them on various things. And when I was talking to them, then the idea started coming of a book on Fiday in Kashmir.
Okay.
Once that started, then I started doing thorough research. Unfortunately, research in those days was difficult because resources were not so easy to come by even on the net. I was fortunate that I managed to contact some people in Pakistan.
How?
Who I was on Orkut. The one Orkut is now
Yes.
dead, but it was at that time quite famous in the pre-Facebook days. So I contacted them, and they are not terrorists as such, but they are of the same fundamentalist groups. So they told me about the rituals and all that, because they're quite different from mainstream Islam.
Okay.
So the rituals and all this, and I read up a lot on that, and it started coming together, and then I started writing it. Once I started writing it, after some time I actually went into a jam. I couldn't think of what to go over next, and I dropped the whole project for about 4 years.
Oh.
I let it drop for around 4 years, then I came back to it with a fresh perspective, and then it went quite well. I totally revised what I had done before as well. So that's how I started. But that's not just the book. The book is quite a lot more than that.
How long does it normally take you to write
A book
a book?
depends on the book, frankly. This book is available online from the usual sources, Amazon and so on. But if you don't want to order online, you can just walk over to Police Bazaar and buy it from Chapala bookstall. It's there as well. I really hope that if you do, you'll enjoy it. Or if you don't, it's because of my fault and not because of anything else. This is my second book, The Call of the Coch. I wrote the first chapter in one evening. I was actually driving home from here when the idea suddenly came to my mind of the first chapter. At that time, I was just planning a short story.
Okay.
So I wrote it in one evening. And the next day, somehow the idea came to me of a sequel, the next chapter. When I started writing the next chapter, then I thought, well, might as well go and finish off a novel. This took me only 23 days to write.
23 days.
On the other hand, this book took me a year and a half to write.
Rainbow's End.
Yeah.
Rainbow's End basically was your first book.
Yes, that's my first book.
Okay.
This took me only 23 days to write. This
took you a few years.
Not really, because in the actual writing time, once I revised it and started over again, was only around 3 months. Unfortunately, after that, I had a terrible time getting it published.
Because it was based on Kashmir.
Because nobody wanted to touch it because it's on Kashmir, and Kashmir is
sensitive.
Controversial.
Now, how do you find so much time between your
I don't have
patients?
a social life. It's as easy as that. I don't have a social life. When I go home, I have nothing else to do except write and read.
Okay. So there's no social life at all?
I don't have a social life at all. So I have nothing better to do than read and write.
Now, you had told me earlier that you also have a web comic.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
true.
right? So, what are these web comics? Are they a series of web comics?
Yeah,
or is it
a
just
web
one?
comic is basically a comic strip that is only online. Like old comics, you get like Asterix and
Yes.
Tintin and all, or Amar Chitra Katha and Archie.
Yes.
So all these are in print. And nowadays they're also in print and on the web. A web comic is one that is only in the web. It has no print version whatsoever. Or else, it may have a print version that only comes out after it's on the web, and its primary presence is only on the web. So that's a web comic.
So, how do you go about it? Because for the comic, do you draw these things yourself?
It's a complicated process. First, I'm telling you quite frankly, it would be much easier if I knew more about all these things, how to do it. But since my abilities, and I'm totally self-taught in this, nobody ever taught me all that thing. So first I draw on pencil on paper, then I go over it with a black marker pen like this.
Okay.
Like this. Then I scan it on the computer. Then I go through various softwares first to remove blemishes, then to color, then I add dialogue, then I post it online. The whole thing takes me at least, suppose I do the drawing in here between patients. Now after I go home, I sometimes have to sit up till midnight or 1 o'clock to finish and post it.
But still, you're on time and active when you see your patients.
It doesn't cut into my patient time.
It doesn't cut into your patient time. Okay. And sleeping late and doing all these things late, you don't make a mistake of pulling the wrong tooth ever?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So now, how do you get a publisher? This is something that a lot of people would like to know.
This is a very difficult thing. In this country, publication, I am telling you right now, publishers in this country, in my experience, unless you're a celebrity, exist only to make money out of writers. The major publishers like Rupa and Roli and all won't even look at your book unless you get submitted through an agent, and even then they'll probably not take it on.
Oh.
Minor publishers, generally speaking, will only take on authors who are willing to pay for getting their books printed.
So you have to pay for your books?
Most of them, I refuse to do that. So with Fiday, I couldn't find it until I was lucky enough to find an agent, and he first sent it through to the big publishers who, as I said, did not touch it. Then he found a new publisher in Lucknow who was just starting out.
Okay.
And that person, since he was just starting out, decided to take a chance on it and took it on. At this time, I have no further intention. That is why I've got other books written which I have not yet got published. I have no intention of getting any more books published in India. My friends in UK, there's a friend in UK who just started publishing a magazine, literary magazine. She is publishing my stories in it, and she intends to start a literary agency, at which time I will be submitting my novels to that.
Okay, so you'll get it published in the UK?
Yeah, I intend to.
Okay. But I think that's a better idea, but I don't understand why don't you all have something, maybe like a forum where you can actually get these publishers to publish our own authors?
This is a problem that used to be universal in Africa in the 1950s. Then Chinua Achebe, who got the Nobel Prize for Literature later.
Mm-hmm.
Chinua Achebe decided to do something about it. Fortunately, he was already famous. He got together other African writers and set up a forum called the African Writers Society, AWS, which published African authors and made from nowhere and made them famous. Plenty of them, Meja Mwangi, Achebe himself, others, Abiose Nicole and others only became famous through the African Writers series.
So why don't we have something like this? Because India is flooded with...
I'll tell you, one problem may be that people no longer read in this country.
They don't read in this country?
They don't read.
I think you're right, because here in Shillong, there was a time when we had, I think, about 6 or 7 bookshops. And when we talk about bookshops, we mean real fiction, non-fiction. Now when you walk into a bookshop, what you see are just school books, college
Only textbooks.
books.
Only textbooks and stationery.
Yes.
Fiction is, if at all, exists right on the back shelves and nobody touches it.
And there'll be some prehistoric book which we've already read about 10 times.
Also, it kills the sense of wonder that children should develop in order to even exert the imagination, and nothing happens without imagination. Even to invent something, someone has to imagine it first.
Yes. True.
Unfortunately, the economy these days is geared entirely to producing people who are employable rather than anything else. Primarily employable. After that, everything else is a distant second. This does not work well in terms of developing the psychology and the future.
That is true. We'll be having robots or zombies basically. They'll just be going to work and coming back home, and they'll be stuck on their mobiles.
I'm glad I don't have a television set, otherwise...
You don't have a television set because you watch it all on your mobile?
I have lost all interest in television around circa 2005. So after that, it has helped me a lot that I don't have a television set.
And what about your mobile? You must be watching your movies and your...
I browse, that's it. I sometimes write short stories right on the mobile.
Okay.
Sometimes, not often, sometimes.
And what about these plays of yours? Have they been dramatized?
I wrote a couple of plays. I haven't put them on. They're more in the sense that just part of the story thing. At least a couple of them I'm not very proud of because after I wrote them, my own thoughts on the matter have changed a lot over the years. So nowadays, I rarely write plays.
Okay.
Rarely, not never, but rarely.
But you do paint also.
Oh, yes. But painting is only a stress reliever for me.
And where do you get the time to paint then?
Painting doesn't take time.
Between the patients and your writing.
Say Sundays, afternoons, or sometimes holidays.
Okay.
Not on. I don't paint. Take out my time on other things and paint. It's just a stress buster.
Okay. And are you planning to have an exhibition of your paintings or any such?
My painting is really, just for my own satisfaction. It's not for public thing. For that, my books and cartoons and all that, but not my paintings.
Not your paintings.
That's just for my own satisfaction. I'm not talking about quality. It may be good or bad, but it's just for my own satisfaction.
But do you have any other upcoming projects?
I have plenty of upcoming projects. I've got right now I'm writing a book called The Chronicles of Cheech, which is a dystopic science fiction novel set in the extreme distant future. That is about 2/3 finished. I have already finished a book of detective stories which was waiting for a publisher. I have finished another fantasy children's book called The Day of the Dragon.
Now this detective series which you've already authored, you said, is he similar to Sherlock Holmes or is he closer home, to your Byomkesh Bakshi kind of thing? Who's your detective in the series?
My detectives are different detectives in different stories. They're not on the same. Each story has a different detective. They're all sorts. In one, there's a detective who is a parody of the hard-boiled American detective. It's called Sledgehammer.
Okay.
But his client is a dinosaur.
His client is a dinosaur.
Another one is set in a parallel reality where ISIS took over the world. And a former ISIS terrorist, now a senior ISIS official, is the detective.
Okay.
Another one is, this actually happened. There was a murder when I was in Lucknow. There was a murder. And the body was left under the bridge.
Oh.
When that was in about January 1990. And for many, many years, I was wondering who killed that person. I never found out. I never found out whether any police investigation was done or anything. Then I wrote a fictionalized account of that and turned this local slum girl into the detective.
All right.
And so on.
So how do you get these ideas? I mean, this,
They
for
come.
example...
They come.
They come. What about this, your future, when you're talking about the future, you said you have this fiction about a future life.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually, imagine it to be?
My future life?
No,
the books.
The books.
So I told you that I'm writing the Chronicles of Cheech. Now that is started off, as most of my books do, as an idea that's basically for a short story or a very limited thing. And then it expands. So I read the Conan the Barbarian series by Robert Howard that were written in the 1930s. They've been parodied back and forth all over the net, all over the literary world. Plenty of people have parodied them. Other people have copied them. I thought of a parody. Robert T. Howard's Conan the Barbarian is just the typical ultra-masculine hero with gigantic muscles and zero understanding of feminine psychology, whose only solution to any problem is to hack it with a sword. So I turned that into a different thing where three people, instead of one, there are three people, one man and two women. The man is the Lord Onek Mangsha and his two wives. And the younger wife is Cheech, who's writing all this. And they're in the very far distant future where the seas have dried and the rivers are gone. Civilization is collapsing. Food has almost run out. Cannibalism is rampant. Okay. And they ran away from their village because it was their turn to be slaughtered, to be turned into food for the people of the village. And all their various adventures afterwards. So again, I started it off as a single short story. But then it grew after that, one after the other, into more and more things. Now it's a fair-sized novel. By the time it finishes, it will be even longer, about twice as long as Fiday. At least
Twice as long as Fiday. Okay. So we wish you all the very best. But I'm very, I really feel so proud of the fact that somebody from Shillong, somebody who I know, has actually won an award.
Thank you
Did
so
you
much.
have to go yourself?
No, I didn't. I would have liked to, but it was not possible for me to. I was sent this later.
Oh, this was sent to you.
Yeah, my agent picked it up for me and he's forwarded it to me later.
So are there any more awards coming up, or has
I don't know. At least my name isn't included in that because I haven't published anything after this. So I don't know what.
Since we have this book here, The Call of the Coch,
Mhm.
what is it? What is this Coch?
In Bengali mythology, there were a couple of man-eating monsters.
Okay.
One is the Rakhosh, which is in Hindi called the Rakshasa,
Uh-huh.
and the other is the Coch. The Coch is variously described as either smaller and weaker than a Rakhosh or bigger and stronger. In my thing, it's just the Cochs are more friendly creatures that are trying to protect human beings from more dangerous things, that are the demons. It's, as I said, it's just a children's book.
So the Coch is not a demon.
No, it's not a monster.
Okay. But it's just a creature.
Yeah.
All right.
A various furry creature of various colored fur.
Various colored.
Yeah, some of them are blue, some black, some brown, and so on.
Have you thought of, maybe getting one of your books televised or, made into a film or something?
Well, that's not under, I can't do anything about that. But one of my friends from Lucknow, Munzir Naqvi, he just created a film, and it's just been in Barcelona. It was in the movie festival in Barcelona, and he is talking about doing a film version of Fiday.
Okay, so he's planning to do a film.
He is talking about it, but he has to get actors and funding and all that. That is difficult. It's not just that it just comes like that.
So what happens now that your books are being televised? They're going to be turned into films. Are you still going to wake up in the morning and come and see your patients, or are you going to concentrate?
I don't know yet if I could. At this point in India, at least you can't make a writing living, as a professional author. Obviously, I would prefer to try and get my writing out into the open as much as possible. Even if I could have got them televised and all that, that wouldn't mean that I would have any particular input in that. I'm not a filmmaker. I don't know anything about the film industry. So all I have to do in that case would be just to, at best, write a script. That is the maximum I could do.
Okay. So even this Fiday also, you'll have to give him a script for the movie.
That is,
or will it be his point of view on it?
Either that, the book can't be just directly transferred into a thing, especially a book like Fiday, in which the first half is more or less an exposition on the backstory of the people and all that. You can't just, you can write it in a book, but you cannot put that into film.
Yes, true.
So a script has to be done of some kind, so that everyone they have all come to this point.
But don't you have the feeling that once you've read the book and then you watch the movie, there's something lacking in the movie?
I very rarely watch movies based on books which I've read, or vice versa, because of this. If I read the book, the movie usually is ruined for me.
True.
If they don't make it properly, then I get irritated as why they didn't include this or that. And if I watch the movie and then I want to read the book, I already know the ending of the book more or less. So what's the point?
So you don't do that?
Yeah, I generally read the book. I don't touch the movie.
Okay.
The only exception that I can think of where the movie was at least as good as the book was All Quiet Flows the Dawn, and where the movie is gigantic, around 3.5 hours long. In the condensed version, even longer than that, where the movie was pretty good. But apart from that, generally I don't touch the movie if I've read the book or vice versa.
It was closest.
Yeah, one or the other.
Okay. Now, what are your future plans? Basically, not as an author, not as a dentist, but just you per se as a person.
How can I say that? The future, I've made a lot of plans, none of which really turned out as I planned. So at the moment, I'm not making any concrete plans. I'll see how it goes.
You'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Basically, you're just going with the flow.
Yeah, I'm going with the flow and doing whatever I can do on the flow. It's like I'm on a boat and I'm writing and sitting on the boat. I'm just not in the stream. That's all. I just wish there were more boats and more people connected to each other on the boats.
But that's such a nice way of saying it. Now, you also said you write poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you published any books on your poetry?
No, I haven't. Though I could if I wanted to. Another of my friends from St. Edmunds has already published around 3 books. But I primarily prefer to think of myself as a novelist rather than a poet.
But it would be nice, I mean, to show the world.
I could, of course. I could
other
if
side of you.
I could. It's not that it's not impossible. I could. I just haven't got around to it yet. If I could, if you would like me to, I could try it, and you could always put it up later somewhere.
I think that would be nice. We're looking forward to all your new novels, your plays, definitely your web comic series, which we will all be going back and watching. And of course, we're wishing you a lot more awards.
Thank you so
much. A
much.
whole lot of awards, because it's a very nice feeling that someone from here, somebody who we can relate to, every time we see a person winning an award, we're like, oh, that person. But here, somebody so down to earth is winning an award, and it's really wonderful. We're so proud of you, and we wish you all the very best for your future, be it your personal life, your professional life.
One of the things I would love to do, if only it was possible, would get Northeast writers together in a forum, and if I can't get something done in all of India, at least we could get a forum of Northeast writers getting their books together and publish somewhere.
Exactly. Maybe you could have a local publisher, maybe something.
Yeah, but we
like
need
that.
a publisher. Publisher means someone who's willing not just to print the books, but to distribute the books and make sure that they're put out and advertised and everything.
And just a small thing that I'd like to ask you, do you have a message for the aspiring writers of the Northeast? Since you're going to have a forum, is there any particular message you'd like to have for them?
Yes, one of the biggest problems with any writer who's just starting out is first not knowing how to write.
Exactly.
We all start out by trying to put everything we know into our first effort. So generally the first books tend to be badly overwritten, and also in the middle a lot of people give up hope and give up. Firstly, it would always be an excellent idea to talk to an already established author to see what tips he or she can give you, number one. And number two, please don't give up. Please do not give up. Even if it looks bad, at some point, if you keep at it, you will achieve some measure of success. I'm not saying you're going to be the next Stephen King.
Yes.
I'm not saying you're going to be the next P.G. Wodehouse. But at least you'll be the next whoever you are. That is what I have learned from many years of writing and many years of effort. Even at the point where I'm absolutely depressed, it comes. You write something, you send it to a publisher, you get rejections from one after the other, you get depressed. But that's just part of the thing. It's not, that doesn't mean that you will be forever not getting it published. At some point, somewhere you will get successful. Please don't give up.
Spoken as a true author. But thank you, viewers. We've just had such an exhaustive talk with Dr. Biswapriya Purkayastha, and I'm sure all of you all are dying to get your hands on either one of his 3 books that we have here with us. I hope all the aspiring writers over there have really heard what he had to say, and here's wishing all of you aspiring writers and Dr. Biswapriya Purkayastha a very, very happy journey as you sit down and write on your typewriter, on your keyboard, or even if it's on pen and paper. I hope that someday all of you all will be able to publish your books, and that the world will know what talent we have hidden here in the Northeast. So from all of us here, here's wishing you a wonderful evening ahead. Take care and God bless. Thank you.